He vanished without a trace, until police found the chilling footage. Before we dive into this nightmare, hit subscribe, but only if you're brave enough to see how deep this story goes. The rain had already washed most of the footprints away by the time officers arrived at the abandoned rest stop off County Road 81. Blue sirens flicker across cracked pavement, the lights slicing through the dark like a trembling heartbeat. A single sedan, engine still warm, sat parked in an awkward angle as if someone had slammed the brakes and never touched them again. The driver's door stood wide open. Inside the car, the radio hummed with static, and the owner, 29-year-old software engineer Daniel Mercer, was nowhere. The air smelled of wet asphalt and something metallic police couldn't name yet, something that left a tightness in the chest. Detective Lena Hart, the lead on call, pulled her coat tighter and crouched beside the driver's seat. Daniel's cell phone was on the ground. Screen shattered, the last text half-typed. If something happens... She stared at it. Half messages always feel like ghosts. Lena stood and scanned the tree line. The rest stop was surrounded by thick woods, tall pines that swallowed sound and light. Beyond them stretched 60 miles of rural nothing. There were no witnesses, no cameras, no signs of a struggle. It was like Daniel had been lifted out of the world. But that was just the beginning. Hours later, detectives were at Daniel's apartment, an immaculate, quiet place full of half-finished puzzles and neatly stacked code manuals. Nothing was broken, nothing missing, nothing out of place, except for one unsettling detail. Daniel's laptop, normally locked behind biometric security, was wide open on his desk, and on the screen was a single video file, 01:03:11.mp4. Lena frowned at the timestamp-like title. She clicked play. The footage opened with Daniel, sitting stiffly in front of the webcam, eyes red, breathing fast. The room behind him was dark, lit only by the computer's glow. His voice shook. If you're watching this, I didn't disappear willingly. Lena leaned closer. Daniel looked over his shoulder multiple times, like he expected someone to burst into the room. They found me, he whispered. I don't know how, but they know where I live now. And they know I saw something I wasn't supposed to. Then the screen glitched. A sharp, digital distortion ran through Daniel's face, warping it for a split second. Then the audio returned. I recorded everything, he breathed. Everything I saw. It's on. More static. Daniel froze, eyes wide. He looked at the camera one last time and mouthed the words, I'm sorry. The screen went black. The file ended. No explanation, no proof, no clear threat, just a terrified confession of a man who had vanished hours later. Lena's partner, Detective Marcus Shaw, crossed his arms. What the hell was that? Who did he think was watching him? She didn't answer. The video felt wrong, almost rehearsed, but the terror was real. She replayed the footage frame by frame until something caught her eye. At timestamp 037, Daniel turned his head slightly. In the dark behind him, the faintest outline of someone, some shape, moved past the doorway. Not enough to identify, just enough to confirm they weren't alone. The investigation moved fast after that. Police canvassed neighborhoods, traced phone records, checked traffic cameras. Daniel hadn't been followed, at least not by anyone traceable. His last known movements were ordinary. Gas station, grocery store, home. Nothing out of the ordinary. But one neighbor remembered something weird. An older woman across the hall told police she heard Daniel arguing with someone 2 nights before he vanished. A man's voice, calm, low, demanding. I couldn't hear much, she said, wringing her hands. But I remember Daniel saying, I won't be quiet about this. And then the other man said something like, you already talked too much. Lena wrote every word down. Threats meant motive. Motive meant suspects. But as they dug deeper, the case took an even stranger turn. Daniel's workplace confirmed he had filed an internal complaint days before the disappearance against a contractor working under a fake name. No address, no verified identity, no digital footprint. And then, while officers searched Daniel's car again, they found something hidden under the passenger seat. A small, rusted USB drive. Someone had tried to crush it, but not enough to destroy it. Lena held it in her gloved hand, pulse quickening. Whatever Daniel recorded, whatever he risked his life over, might be on that drive. Forensics rushed it to the lab. Technicians worked in silence, breathing carefully as if afraid to disturb the data. The drive was damaged, corrupted, stubborn. It took hours to extract anything. At last, the lead technician called Lena over. "We got one file." Her throat tightened. "What kind of file?" "A video," the technician said, "and you're going to want to see this." She walked into the dark viewing room, heart pounding. The video flashed alive. And there Daniel was, camera shaking, running, breath ragged, glancing over his shoulder at something chasing him. He turned the phone toward a clearing in the woods, and just before the screen cut to black, a figure stepped into view, a man in a black jacket, face covered, watching Daniel, as if he knew he was being filmed. Lena's breath caught. Daniel hadn't been paranoid. He had been hunted, and as the screen faded, one final frame flickered. A single image, almost hidden. Coordinates. A real location. A place deep in the woods. A place where no one should be at night. She grabbed her coat. "We're going," she said. "Now." But when the team reached the coordinates and kicked open the old, locked basement door, they knew instantly that the case was
the basement no one was supposed to find. The basement door slammed against the wall as Detective Lena Hart and her team descended into a cold darkness that felt unnatural, like the air itself resisted being breathed. The smell hit first, damp concrete mixed with old machinery and rust. The only light came from their flashlights, beams cutting through swirling dust like thin blades. The room was larger than expected, hidden beneath what looked like a collapsed storage shed. It wasn't a place someone stumbled upon. It was built, intentionally, for secrecy. Lena stepped forward slowly. "This wasn't a hiding spot," she whispered. "It's a workspace." The walls confirmed it, hundreds of photos pinned in careful rows, all of them printed in blue-tinted thermal ink that made the faces look ghostly. Many were strangers. Some were blurred. But 5 images stood out. They were all of Daniel Mercer, taken without his knowledge. Daniel at a coffee shop. Daniel entering his apartment. Daniel crossing the street at night. Daniel at his office window. Daniel standing at the same rest stop where he disappeared. Someone had been tracking him for months. Marcus cursed under his breath. "This is a stalker's nest." "No," Lena said, scanning the rest of the basement. "This is surveillance grade. Whoever did this wasn't obsessed. They were watching him for a purpose." In the corner, they found a long workbench cluttered with dismantled electronics, burner phones, hidden cameras, GPS trackers, and something more unsettling, a pile of shredded IDs, each with different names, different faces, all expertly forged. Marcus held up a half-shredded card. "This matches the fake name used at Daniel's company." Before Lena could answer, Officer Reyes called out from across the room, "You need to see this." They crossed the basement to a small steel cabinet. Inside were 3 items, a black duffel bag, a lone notebook, and an old camcorder with dried mud coating the lens. The notebook was filled with dates, coded phrases, and shorthand abbreviations. One line repeated throughout. 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 11 seconds move everything. Lena felt a chill. That's the same title as the video on Daniel's laptop. Reyes opened the duffel bag and froze. Inside were handcuffs, rope, and a taser, but all unused. No signs of violence. Tools meant for control, not for killing. Or at least not immediately. But it was the camcorder that stopped everyone cold. The technicians played the footage directly in the basement, projecting it against the concrete wall. The first few minutes were shaky, unfocused. The camera moved through woods at dawn. Then suddenly it steadied and zoomed in on 2 men standing near an SUV. One of them wore the same black jacket from Daniel's USB file, the mask watcher. The other man was unmasked, his face visible in the pale morning light. Marcus took a step closer. "Is that?" Lena's stomach dropped. "That's Daniel's CEO, Robert Hale." The footage had audio, too, muffled but clear enough to recognize Hale's voice. "Keep an eye on him. He hasn't handed it over yet." The masked man replied, "He will. One way or another." The video ended abruptly, with the camera dropping onto wet leaves. Footsteps approached the lens. Then a hand covered it, and the screen went black. When the projector stopped, the silence in the basement felt suffocating. Marcus shook his head. Why would a tech CEO stalk one of his own engineers? Lena didn't answer. She was staring at one photo on the wall, the most recent one taken of Daniel at the rest stop. Behind him, reflected faintly in the car window, was the masked figure. Only now Lena noticed something she'd missed before. On the figure's sleeve was a patch, a circular emblem. She snapped a photo of it on her phone. It wasn't corporate. It wasn't a gang sign. It wasn't law enforcement. It was military. A retired unit's emblem. A unit dissolved 10 years ago due to ethical violations involving unauthorized surveillance programs. Lena's voice tightened. This wasn't stalking. This was an operation. And Daniel had somehow stumbled into it. They rushed out of the basement and into the night, where rain fell in heavy sheets. As the team packed evidence, Lena checked her phone. She'd sent the emblem image to a trusted contact in federal intelligence. A message came back immediately. "Where did you get this? This is highly classified." Lena typed, "Victim's disappearance." A few seconds passed. Then another reply. "Get out. Now. If they know you found that basement, they're already watching you." Before Lena could show the message to Marcus, headlights flashed through the trees. A black SUV rolled slowly toward them. No plates. No markings. Windows tinted too dark to see inside. Marcus' hand went to his holster. "We expecting company?" "No," Lena whispered. "We need to move." But before they could react, the SUV turned sharply and sped away, tires kicking up mud. A warning. A taunt. Reyes exhaled shakily. "They know we're onto them." Lena tucked the camcorder under her arm. "Then we don't back off." Just as they finished clearing the basement, a radio call came through, dispatch sounding frantic. "Detectives, urgent update on the Mercer case. We just received an anonymous drop-off at headquarters." Lena frowned. "What kind of drop-off?" "A USB drive and a note. Addressed to you." Marcus looked at Lena. "That can't be good." They raced back to the station. On the lieutenant's desk lay a plain envelope, drenched from the rain. Inside was the USB drive and a single line written on paper. "You're next." Lena plugged the drive into the forensic computer. A single file appeared. live_feed_02.mp4. She clicked it. The video opened with a dark room. A single light flickered overhead. Chains clinked in the background. And then Daniel appeared on screen. Alive, bruised, terrified, but definitely alive. He looked directly into the camera. "Detective Hart," he whispered. "Please don't come looking for me." A door behind him creaked open. Daniel flinched, and the video cut to black.
The truth they tried to bury. Detective Lena Hart replayed Daniel's trembling whisper over and over in her mind as she and Marcus raced through the storm toward the old industrial district on the outskirts of town. The live_feed_02 video had one detail that only she noticed. A thin, pale blue light flickering on the wall behind Daniel. A very specific kind of light. Industrial sodium lamps used in abandoned factories. The same one she had seen a dozen times while working former kidnapping cases. There were only 3 such locations still standing. One of them belonged to a shell company owned by Daniel's CEO, Robert Hale. By the time they reached the factory, the rain was pounding so hard it felt like needles against the skin. The building loomed above them, massive, decayed, and humming with low electrical vibration. Every window was dark except one on the second floor, glowing faint blue. Daniel's room. Lena raised her gun. "We go quiet. They'll expect law enforcement, not 2 detectives." Marcus nodded, jaw clenched. "Let's bring him home." They slipped through a broken side door, stepping into a hollow maze of rusted walkways and echoing metal. The sound of distant machinery pulsed from somewhere inside. A generator. Maybe powering the single room where Daniel was held. Their footsteps were drowned by the rain hammering the roof, each drop sounding like a clock ticking down. As they ascended the metal stairs, Lena noticed fresh boot prints in the dust. 2 sets. One heavy, one lighter. Someone had arrived recently, or never left. When they reached the second floor, the blue light washed the hallway in an eerie glow. Lena peeked around the corner. 2 men stood guard. One wore the same military emblem stitched onto his sleeve, the disbanded unit. She held up 3 fingers to Marcus. He nodded. They moved. Lena struck first, stunning the taller guard with the butt of her gun. Marcus grabbed the second, disarming him before he could react. Within seconds, both were tied with industrial cable. Lena pressed her ear to the steel door ahead. A voice, weak, strained. Daniel. They burst through. Daniel sat chained to a metal chair, face bruised, eyes swollen, but alive. When he saw Lena, tears filled his eyes. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "They warned you." Lena rushed him, pulling out bolt cutters. "We're taking you home." Daniel shook his head violently. "No, you don't understand. This isn't about me anymore." Footsteps thundered behind them. Robert Hale stepped into the doorway, drenched from rain, calm as if walking into a board meeting. Behind him, the masked soldier from the previous video stood silent, a ghost in black fabric. Hale's voice was cold. "Detective Hart, I warned you once." Lena aimed her gun, hands where I can see them. Hale smirked, unfazed. "You're chasing the wrong crime. Daniel isn't a victim. He's a liability. He stole something from us, something worth millions, and he thinks he can hide behind a detective with good intentions." Marcus stepped beside her. "You're running a black ops surveillance program, using a dissolved military unit, tracking civilians. You call that good intentions?" Hale didn't blink. "Protection requires sacrifice. And kidnapping?" Lena shot back. "Containment," Hale corrected. Daniel walked into data he had no clearance for. He saw the footage we collected, the people we monitored, the corporations involved, the politicians funding it. He thought exposing it would save lives. In reality, he endangered everything. Daniel winced. "I found out they were using our software to track whistleblowers, real people, innocent people, and make them disappear so corporations could bury crimes. I had proof. I tried to warn them." Hale's jaw tightened. "You were never the hero of this story, Daniel." Lena stepped forward, fury rising. "So you hunted him." Hale shrugged, "Just cleaning up loose ends." The masked soldier reached for his weapon. Lena fired first. The shot hit the ceiling pipe above him, releasing a violent burst of scalding steam that blinded the soldier. Marcus lunged forward, tackling him. Hale tried to run, but Lena intercepted him, driving him against the wall. The entire factory erupted into chaos. Shouts, metal clanging, steam filling the air like fog. Lena and Hale fought, knocking over desks and tools. He grabbed a shard of broken glass and slashed at her arm, but she dodged and pinned him with a fallen metal beam. Down the hallway, Marcus secured the soldier, kicking away his gun. Daniel, still chained, yelled, "Lena, look out!" Hale broke free and lunged at her, but Lena swung her gun and struck him across the jaw. Hale collapsed, groaning, dazed. Within minutes, backup sirens echoed outside. Officers flooded the building. Hale and his soldier were handcuffed, dragged out under the flashing blue lights that cut through the rain. Paramedics freed Daniel from the chair and wrapped him in a silver blanket. He leaned into Lena, exhausted. "You saved my life," he whispered. Lena shook her head. "You saved your own. You left clues. You held on." But something still bothered her. The fear in Daniel's voice when he said it wasn't about him anymore. "What did they take, Daniel?" she asked gently. Daniel reached into his sock, pulling out a tiny, waterproof microchip. "This is the real evidence," he said. "Everything they did. Every name. Every location. Every disappearance. Hale didn't know I had a duplicate." Lena stared at the chip, the weight of it sinking in. Evidence that could topple powerful people. Evidence worth killing for. As dawn broke, Rain finally easing, Daniel stepped toward the ambulance. Reporters were already gathering like vultures. But before Lena could close the door behind him, Daniel froze. A message had been spray painted on the factory wall overnight. Fresh, dripping, unmistakable. This isn't over. Lena's stomach tightened. Is this Hale's doing? Daniel shook his head. No. His group wasn't the only one watching. The ambulance door shut. Sirens wailed. Officers escorted Hale into a van, but he glanced back at Lena with a faint, sinister smile, like he knew something she didn't. 3 weeks later, just as Daniel began a new life under protection, a body was discovered in a neighboring state. A journalist, throat bruised, phone smashed, and beside the body, an emblem, the same emblem from the disbanded unit. Lena stared at the report in silence. They had arrested Hale. They had exposed the operation. But the message was clear. Not everyone involved had been caught. And somewhere in the shadows of another city, the real architect was still out there, fixing loose ends, watching the watchers. Lena closed her casebook. This story isn't over, she whispered. Not even close. If you think this case was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe.